She was dressed in worn-out clothes and sat silently in seat 12F as the well-heeled passengers around her cast judgmental glances for 3 long hours. Then, their aircraft lost all electrical power and began to plummet from the sky. It was at that moment the woman they had privately ridiculed stood up and stated her military call sign. Everything changed in an instant. Before we begin the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Olivia Harding stood in the sprawling queue at Chicago O'Hare International, clutching her boarding pass in hands that told a story of hard work. The paper was creased from being checked and rechecked. She appeared like any other weary traveler waiting for flight T-1138 to San Francisco. She had on a simple pair of frayed blue jeans with a small patch near the right knee and a faded gray hoodie that had seen better days. Her brown hair was tied back with a simple elastic, and she carried a scuffed-up olive-drab duffel bag that looked like it had been through a war. To the casual observer, she was just another person trying to get from one place to another. Behind her, a pair of investment bankers in sharp, expensive suits spoke loudly about their upcoming merger in Silicon Valley. Ahead of her, a trio of tech workers giggled about their company's lavish retreat. No one gave the quiet woman in the unassuming clothes a second look. "Next," called the gate agent, a young man named Alex who'd only been with the airline for a year. Olivia handed him her pass. "Seat 12F, first class," Alex said, his eyebrows rising. He glanced at his monitor, then back at her ticket. "Ma'am, is this correct?" "Yes," Olivia said softly. "It's my seat." Alex shrugged and returned the pass. "All right then, you can go ahead and board." As Olivia made her way down the jet bridge, she felt the stares of the other first-class passengers. A man in a tailored suit worth more than her car gave her a dismissive once-over. A woman dripping in jewelry whispered to her companion, gesturing toward Olivia's old duffel bag. "Pardon me," Olivia said politely to a large man blocking the aisle. He sported a designer watch that could have paid for a year of college tuition. "Coaches that way," he said with a sneer, not bothering to move. "I'm in 12F, Olivia stated, holding up her ticket. The man, whose luggage tag read Marcus Thorne, Thorne Capital, squinted at her ticket in disbelief. "First class? Someone must have taken pity on you with an upgrade." He finally shifted, shaking his head. "They're really letting standards slip these days," he muttered to his associate. Olivia found her window seat and stowed her bag beneath the seat in front of her. The duffel was old and faded, with several small embroidered patches sewn onto it. Most would assume they were just decorative, but each one represented a story that would leave these passengers speechless if they knew what they meant. Her seatmate was Eleanor Vance, a prominent socialite from Lake Forest. She looked at Olivia as if she were a piece of lint that had sullied her cashmere coat. "I do hope you're not a skittish flyer," Mrs. Vance said icily. "I can't stand it when people get hysterical over a little bumpiness." Olivia offered a small, polite smile. "Flying doesn't bother me," she said. Across the aisle, a surgeon named Dr. Alan Finch was holding court with his colleague. "The issue in this country," he declared, "is a total erosion of standards. Look at this. Even the airlines are letting just anyone into the front of the plane." His friend, a corporate lawyer named Leo Caldwell, nodded in agreement. "I couldn't agree more. This cabin just doesn't have the same class it once did." They both threw a pointed glance toward Olivia. The flight attendant, Jessica Miller, came around for pre-departure drink orders. She was all smiles for the other passengers, but her warmth vanished when she got to Olivia. "And what can I get for you?" she asked Mrs. Vance. "A glass of champagne, of course," Mrs. Vance replied. Jessica turned to Olivia, her smile now tight and forced. "And for you?" "Water is fine," Olivia said. "Just water?" Jessica pressed, a note of surprise in her voice. "We have orange juice, sparkling cider, coffee." "Water, please." Jessica shrugged and moved on. As she walked away, Olivia overheard her whisper to another attendant, "Guess that's all she can afford." At 10:20 a.m., Flight T-1138 departed from Chicago, ascending into the bright morning sky. The plane was an Airbus A350, a modern marvel of aviation. As they reached their cruising altitude of 39,000 feet, the passengers began to settle in for the 4-hour journey to the west coast. Olivia gazed out the window at the blanket of clouds below. She had seen this vista countless times, but usually from the cockpit of a much different type of aircraft. The people around her had no clue that the quiet woman in seat 12F had logged more flight hours than every commercial pilot they'd ever flown with put together. "So, what is it you do for a living, Mrs.?" Vance asked Olivia, her tone making it clear she expected a boring answer. "I used to be a government employee," Olivia replied simply. Mrs. Vance let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, a bureaucrat. That explains the wardrobe." She gestured at Olivia's simple clothes with undisguised contempt. Behind them, Marcus Thorne was boasting to his partner. "I'm heading out to finalize a $100 million tech acquisition," he said, ensuring everyone within earshot could hear. "Not everyone on this flight is doing something so crucial," Dr. Finch chimed in. "I'm keynoting a major surgical conference. My latest technique is set to change the face of neurosurgery." Leo Caldwell nodded sagely. "And I'm deposing the CEO of a rival tech firm. Hugely important." They all glanced at Olivia, waiting for her to be suitably impressed or perhaps share her own reason for travel. When she remained silent, they collectively dismissed her as unimportant. "Some people simply don't recognize what true success looks like," Mrs. Vance said, loud enough for Olivia to hear. Olivia kept quiet, pulling a well-worn paperback from her duffel. The book was a dense manual on avionics systems, but she held it angled so no one could read the title. 2 hours into the flight, the meal service began. The attendants passed out elegant, leather-bound menus to the first-class passengers, detailing the gourmet selections. "Today we're offering a choice of seared filet mignon with a red wine reduction or pan-roasted halibut with a citrus beurre blanc," Jessica announced brightly. "For dessert, a choice of a dark chocolate lava cake or a key lime tart." She gave menus to every passenger in the cabin, except for Olivia. "So sorry," Jessica said when she got to Olivia's seat. "We seem to have run out of menus. But I can just tell you what we have." Olivia looked up from her book. "That's all right." "Whatever's easiest is fine for me." Mrs. Vance smirked. "Some people just aren't accustomed to having choices," she whispered to the passenger behind her. When the meals arrived, everyone else's was served on fine china with polished metal cutlery and linen napkins. Olivia received her meal on a plastic tray with plastic utensils, the same kind used in the economy cabin. "Oh dear," said Dr. Finch, feigning concern as he noticed the discrepancy. "It appears there's been a mistake with your service." "It's fine," Olivia said, unwrapping her silverware. Marcus Thorne chuckled. "Maybe that's the easiest option she asked for. Some people have simple tastes." The jibes continued throughout the meal. The other passengers seemed to derive a strange pleasure from making fun of Olivia, assuming she was too simple or unworldly to grasp their condescending remarks. "I'd wager she's never stepped foot in a Michelin star restaurant," Leo Caldwell said quietly to his neighbor. "Probably thinks Applebee's is the height of sophistication," replied Mrs. Vance with a cruel little smile. Olivia ate her meal without a word, betraying no reaction to their insults. She had consumed far worse food in far more dire situations, a fact these passengers would never be able to comprehend. As the meal concluded, the comments grew more pointed. "I just don't understand how she could have afforded a first-class ticket," Dr. Finch mused to his friend, his voice carrying easily. "Probably won it in some contest," Leo Caldwell replied with a laugh. Marcus Thorne chimed in. "I hear there are all sorts of government handouts these days for people like her. My tax dollars, hard at work." Mrs. Vance added her own critique. "And just look at those clothes. That hoodie looks like it was found in a lost and found bin. And those boots, I wouldn't even donate those." Olivia continued reading, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the book. She'd faced down enemy fire, but the casual, privileged cruelty of these people stung in a different way. "Ma'am," Jessica said, collecting Olivia's plastic tray. "I trust the meal was satisfactory for you. I know it might not be what you're used to." The other passengers tittered at the thinly veiled insult. Olivia looked up at Jessica, her gaze steady. "It was fine, thank you." But inside, Olivia was remembering other meals, freeze-dried rations eaten in a cockpit, flying through hostile airspace, cold MRES shoveled down in a desert hangar between sorties. These people had no concept of what real privation was. At 1:45 p.m., somewhere over Nevada, the world changed. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain, Ben Carter," came the voice over the PA. "We're currently experiencing some minor issues with our flight computer. We ask that you please remain in your seats as our team works on it." Most passengers paid it little mind. Glitches happened. They were usually resolved in minutes. But Olivia's head shot up. She heard something in the captain's voice that the others didn't, a tightly wound tension that signaled this was far from a minor issue. 10 minutes later, the captain's voice was back. This time, the strain was unmistakable. "Folks, we will need to prepare for an emergency landing. We've had a failure in our primary navigation and communication arrays, and we are losing contact with air traffic control." Now a murmur of fear spread through the cabin. Mrs. Vance's knuckles turned white on her armrest. "Doctor." Finch's confident expression was replaced with a pale mask. Marcus Thorne stopped looking at his stock portfolio and started looking worried. "What's he saying?" demanded Leo Caldwell. "Are we crashing?" A flight attendant attempted to soothe the rising panic. "Please, everyone, stay calm. The pilots are highly trained for these scenarios. Everything will be fine." But Olivia could read the crew's body language. They were not fine. She'd seen that same look of controlled fear in the eyes of soldiers who were out of ammo and surrounded. 15 minutes later, the situation deteriorated completely. "This is Captain Carter again." The voice was now audibly shaking. "I feel I must be direct with you all. We have lost nearly all our electronic systems. It appears to be part of a coordinated cyber attack targeting aircraft systems. We are flying completely dark and have no way to communicate with anyone on the ground." The cabin exploded into chaos. "Cyber attack?" Mrs. Vance shrieked. "What on earth does that mean?" "Oh, God, we're all going to die," shouted Dr. Finch. Marcus Thorne was fumbling with his phone, trying to make a call, but there was no service. The flight attendants struggled to restore order, their own fear evident. "Please, remain calm," Jessica pleaded, her voice trembling. But Olivia knew the reality. She had studied cyber warfare as part of her service. A multi-system simultaneous failure like this wasn't a glitch. It was an act of aggression. And she knew something else that sent a chill down her spine. Without its advanced systems, this A350 was just a multi-ton glider that would eventually fall out of the sky. Olivia unbuckled her seatbelt and stood. "Ma'am, you need to sit down," Jessica commanded. "We need everyone seated immediately." "I have to talk to the pilots," Olivia said, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of panic. "I'm sorry, but that's impossible. No passengers are allowed in the cockpit, especially not now." Olivia met Jessica's gaze. "My name is Olivia Harding. I am a retired colonel from the United States Air Force. I have 30 years of combat flight experience. I've flown through situations like this before, and I can help." Jessica just stared, dumbfounded. "You're a pilot?" "I was," Olivia confirmed. "And right now, I might be the only soul on this plane who can navigate by hand." Mrs. Vance, overhearing this, let out a hysterical laugh. "Her? She's just some vagrant in a hoodie. She's delusional." But Jessica saw certainty in Olivia's eyes, a steely command that completely contradicted her appearance. I'll have to ask the captain," Jessica stammered. She picked up the interplane phone. Olivia could hear only her side of the frantic conversation. "Captain, there's a passenger here. She says she's a retired Air Force colonel." A pause. "Yes, sir." Olivia Harding. Another pause. Yes, sir. I'll send her up. Jessica hung up the phone and looked at Olivia with a newfound awe. The captain wants to see you, now. Olivia followed Jessica to the cockpit. Inside, Captain Carter and First Officer Dave Reynolds looked frantic and pale. The normally bright cockpit was eerily dark, with only a few red emergency lights glowing. Most of the glass displays were black. "You're the Air Force pilot?" Captain Carter asked, his voice tight. "Retired," Olivia confirmed. "Give me the sit rep." "It's all gone," First Officer Reynolds said, his hands shaking. "Nav, comms, autopilot, even the tertiary backups. It's like some kind of logic bomb went off in our core systems." Olivia scanned the dead panels. "Manual flight controls?" "Still responsive," Captain Carter replied, "but we're blind. No GPS, no radio, no idea where we are." Olivia nodded, her mind already working. "I can fix that. Do you have paper navigational charts?" "Just the emergency packet," Reynolds said. "They're not very detailed." "They're all I need," Olivia said with a confidence that seemed to calm the two men. "I can navigate by dead reckoning and visual reference. It's old school, but it's reliable." Captain Carter looked doubtful. "With all due respect, ma'am, this is an A350 with over 300 souls on board." Olivia offered a tight smile, the first she'd shown all day. "Captain, I've navigated a C-17 full of troops through a sandstorm over enemy territory with zero electronics. I think I can manage your Airbus." For the next hour, Olivia worked with the pilots, establishing their position and plotting a new course. She used the position of the sun, prominent features on the desert landscape below, and her own internal sense of time and speed to calculate their location. "Based on my estimates, we're about 150 miles east of Las Vegas," she announced. "If we adjust our heading and begin a controlled descent, we should be able to make a visual approach to Nellis Air Force Base." "But how will we land without any communication?" Reynolds asked. "The tower won't see us coming." "We'll have to fly an unannounced emergency approach," Olivia stated. "It's high risk, but it's our only play." As they worked, Olivia's deep expertise was undeniable. She understood the aircraft systems on a level that stunned the commercial pilots. Her knowledge of emergency protocols was vast. Her composure under extreme pressure was almost inhuman. "Ma'am," Captain Carter finally said, "what exactly did you fly in the Air Force?" Olivia paused. "A few different platforms, mostly fighters." "What kind of fighters?" Reynolds pressed. "F-35s mostly, and some other experimental craft I can't talk about." The two pilots stared at her, their mouths agape. F-35 pilots were the absolute pinnacle of the Air Force, the best of the best. "You flew the Lightning?" Captain Carter whispered. Olivia nodded. "For about 12 years. As they neared Las Vegas, Captain Carter made a critical decision. "We need an escort," he said. "Even if we're dark, we might be able to get the military's attention on the emergency frequency." He began transmitting into the static, a Hail Mary into the void. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Transair 1138. We are approaching Las Vegas airspace with total systems failure and require immediate assistance." For what felt like an eternity, there was only silence. Then a voice crackled to life. "Transair 1138, this is Nellis Tower. We read you faintly. State your emergency." Captain Carter quickly relayed their situation. The controller's voice was laced with disbelief. "Transair 1138, you are declaring a full systems failure due to a cyber attack?" "That is affirmative," Carter replied. "We are on manual controls only." "Roger that, Transair 1138. We are scrambling fighters to intercept and provide escort. State your current position." Olivia took the microphone. "Nellis, this is the navigator on Transair 1138. We are approximately 40 miles east-northeast of your position. Altitude is 12,000 feet, heading 250 degrees. Copy, Transair. Fighters are on the way. ETA to intercept is 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, Two sleek gray fighters materialized on either side of the A-350. The F-35s slid into perfect formation, their pilots clearly visible under their bubble canopies. "Transair 1138, this is Viper 1, a voice crackled over the radio. "We have you visual. We will escort you in." In the A-350's cockpit, Captain Carter was mesmerized by the sight. "Those are F-35s, he said to Olivia, "the most advanced aircraft on the planet." Olivia was studying the lead fighter. "The pilot on the lead plane is excellent," she noted. "Rock-steady formation." Over the radio, they heard the F-35 pilot instruct his wingman. "Viper 2, hold position on the port side. I'll guide them down." "Copy, lead," came the reply. As they flew toward Nellis, the lead pilot began asking questions. "Transair 1138, how are you navigating with no systems?" Captain Carter looked to Olivia, who took the mic. "Viper 1, we're using dead reckoning and visual landmarks." "Copy that. Who's your navigator?" "Retired Air Force," Olivia replied, keeping it brief. "What was your background, navigator?" Olivia paused. She'd guarded her identity for years, and it felt unnatural to reveal it now. But with hundreds of lives on the line, secrecy was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Viper 1, my call sign was Spectre." The radio went dead silent for a full 30 seconds. Then the lead F-35 pilot's voice came back, and the tone was completely transformed. It was filled with shock and reverence. "Spectre? Did you say your call sign was Spectre?" "Confirmed," Olivia replied. "Stand by, Transair." They could hear the F-35 pilot speaking urgently on a different channel, his words muffled. Captain Carter and First Officer Reynolds looked at Olivia, completely bewildered. "What's Spectre?" Carter asked. Olivia sighed. "It was my call sign." "But why did he have that reaction?" Reynolds asked. Before Olivia could reply, the radio came to life again. "Transair 1138, this is Colonel James Riley, 57th Wing Commander. Am I speaking with Colonel Olivia Harding? Call sign Spectre?" Olivia took a slow breath. "Confirmed, Colonel. Colonel Olivia Harding, retired. Ma'am, it is an incredible honor. Viper 1, did you copy that?" "Yes, sir," came the F-35 pilot's excited voice. "Sir, it's really her. It's Spectre." In the background, they could hear the pilot talking to his wingman. "Dude, it's freaking Spectre, the Spectre." Captain Carter was more lost than ever. "What is going on?" "Why does everyone know that name?" Olivia looked uncomfortable. "It's not important now. Our priority is landing this aircraft." But on the radio, Colonel Riley was already briefing the Nellis Tower. "Nellis Tower, be advised, Transair 1138 has Colonel Olivia Harding on board. Call sign Spectre. She is assisting with navigation." "Spectre," came the controller's equally surprised voice. "The Spectre is on that plane?" First Officer Reynolds couldn't hold back his curiosity. "Ma'am, with all due respect, who are you?" Olivia sighed again. "I flew fighters for the Air Force for 30 years. I retired 4 years ago." "But why is everyone acting like you're a rock star?" Before she could answer, the lead F-35 pilot was back on the radio. "Transair 1138. Spectre. This is Captain Evan Shaw. Ma'am, I studied your missions at Top Gun, the Persian Gulf extraction. It's the stuff of legend." Olivia closed her eyes for a second. "Captain Shaw, let's stay focused on the mission at hand." "Yes, ma'am. But ma'am, it's a profound honor to be your escort today." Captain Carter wouldn't let it go. "What Persian Gulf extraction?" Over the radio, they could hear Captain Shaw excitedly explaining to ground control. "Nellis Tower, you have to understand who we're talking about here. Spectre executed the most daring combat rescue in the last 50 years. "Captain Shaw," Olivia said firmly into the mic, "that information is classified." "Ma'am, it was declassified 18 months ago. The entire Air Force knows the story now." Colonel Riley's voice came back. "Spectre, the captain is right. Your mission is now a standard part of our advanced combat training curriculum." Captain Carter looked at Olivia with wide eyes. "What did you do?" Olivia was silent for a long moment before finally speaking. 7 years ago, a SEAL team was compromised deep in hostile territory. The entire area was blanketed by a new generation of surface-to-air missile systems. A conventional rescue was impossible. "So what did you do?" Reynolds asked, leaning forward. "I went in alone, at night, flying nap of the earth to stay below their radar." Captain Shaw's voice filled in the details. She flew through the most heavily defended airspace on the planet, extracted 6 SEALs, and took out 2 enemy missile batteries on her way out. "You flew in there by yourself?" Captain Carter asked, his voice full of awe. "It was the only profile that had a chance of avoiding detection," Olivia explained. "A single F-35 at treetop level is nearly invisible." "But how did you find them in the pitch dark?" "Advanced thermal imaging, sensor fusion, and a lot of luck." Over the radio, Colonel Riley added more. "Spectre's mission saved 6 lives and neutralized a threat that had cost us several aircraft. She was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for her actions." "The Distinguished Service Cross," Captain Carter mouthed silently. "The nation's second highest award for valor." As they continued their approach, more of Olivia's incredible career was revealed. The F-35 pilot seemed to know every detail. "Spectre," Captain Shaw said, "is it true you once engaged 5 enemy fighters at once and won?" "That's classified," Olivia replied flatly. "Ma'am, they declassified that one last year, too. They released your HUD footage." Olivia sounded annoyed. "They released the footage?" "Yes, ma'am. It's all over YouTube. They use it to teach dogfighting now." Captain Carter and First Officer Reynolds could only stare at the quiet woman next to them. "You shot down 5 enemy planes?" Carter asked. "It was a long time ago," Olivia said, her voice quiet. Colonel Riley came back on. "Spectre, for the benefit of your civilian crew, perhaps you could summarize your service record." Olivia was visibly reluctant, but she understood the men needed to trust her completely. "I flew combat sorties for 25 years, she said. F-16S, F-15S, and the F-35. I had some success in air-to-air engagements." "Some success?" Captain Shaw laughed over the radio. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're the highest-scoring fighter ace of the modern era. 16 confirmed kills." 16, Reynolds whispered. "That's more than any American pilot since Vietnam," Captain Carter added, his voice filled with reverence. As they neared the airport, Olivia took charge of the final communications. "Viper 1, what are the surface winds at Nellis?" "Spectre, winds are out of the southwest at 20 knots, gusting to 30. Visibility is clear, ceiling unlimited." "Copy. We'll take the approach from the northeast for runway 21L. "Understood, Spectre. We'll stay with you until you're on final." Olivia turned to Captain Carter. "I recommend a direct approach to 21 left. It's their longest runway and will have a direct headwind." "But the tower, they don't know our exact intentions," Carter said. "The F-35s are talking to them. They'll have the runway clear and the crash crews standing by." As they started their final descent, Olivia navigated by eye, picking out highways, casinos, and mountain ridges to guide the crippled airliner. "There," she said, pointing. "Nellis Air Force Base, 10 o'clock, about 15 miles out." Captain Carter looked and saw the sprawling base. "How did you see that so fast?" "Practice," Olivia said. "I've spent my life finding things from the air." As they got closer, Captain Shaw came on the radio one last time. "Spectre, it has been a true honor flying with you. Viper flight is breaking off. Good luck on your landing." "Thank you for the escort, Major. You fly a tight formation." "Ma'am, may I ask you one thing?" "Go ahead." "What's it like being a living legend?" Olivia was quiet for a beat. "Captain, I'm just a pilot who tried to do her job. The real legends are the guys I brought home and the ones I couldn't." "Yes, ma'am." "Understood." The 2 F-35s peeled off in a powerful climbing turn as the A-350 lined up with runway F-21L. Despite the lack of any electronic aids, Olivia talked Captain Carter through a textbook landing. The massive plane touched down smoothly and rolled to a safe stop. An army of fire trucks and emergency vehicles was waiting, but their services were not required. As the passengers erupted in cheers and applause, Olivia quietly collected her duffel bag. When the plane taxied to a secure area, the first-class passengers who had been so cruel sat in a state of shock. They had just found out that the woman they'd scorned was one of the greatest heroes in modern military history. Mrs. Vance, who had mocked Olivia's wardrobe, now realized she had been sitting next to a warrior. Marcus Thorne, who had accused her of getting a handout, understood he had insulted someone whose bravery was beyond his comprehension. Dr. Finch and Leo Caldwell, who had lamented the erosion of standards, realized they had been in the presence of the highest standard imaginable. Jessica, the flight attendant who had served her a plastic meal, was overcome with shame. As Olivia prepared to deplane, several passengers approached her. "Colonel Harding," Mrs. Vance said, her voice trembling, "I owe you the most profound apology. I had no idea." Olivia looked at her, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Vance, you treated me the way you assume everyone who doesn't look like you deserves to be treated. That says everything about your character, not mine." "But you saved all of our lives," Marcus Thorne stammered. "If it wasn't for you," Olivia shook her head. "Mr. Thorne, I did what my training prepared me for. But how you acted before you knew who I was, that's who you are." The story of Flight T-1138 became global news within hours. The audio of the F-35 pilots reacting to Olivia's call sign became a viral sensation. News organizations ran glowing profiles of the legendary pilot who was mistreated by passengers, blind to her true worth. The passengers who had been so cruel faced a swift and public reckoning. Online sleuths identified them from news reports and cell phone videos. Marcus Thorne's investment firm lost several major clients who were disgusted by his behavior. His reputation in the financial world was shattered. Mrs. Vance found herself uninvited from the galas and charity balls that were her lifeblood. Dr. Finch's prestigious practice saw a mass exodus of patients who refused to be treated by a man who would insult a war hero. Leo Caldwell's law firm forced him into an early retirement to mitigate the PR damage. Jessica, the flight attendant, was fired by the airline, but Olivia took no pleasure in their downfall. When a reporter asked for her thoughts on the consequences they faced, she simply said, "I hope it's a learning experience for them." 3 months later, Olivia received a letter from Jessica. "Dear Colonel Harding," it began, "I have replayed that flight in my head every single day. I judged you based on how you looked, and I was cruel. I want you to know that your quiet dignity in the face of our ignorance has fundamentally changed me. I am no longer a flight attendant, but I've started developing a new training course for airline staff about unconscious bias. I'm calling it the 12F protocol because you never know who is in that seat." Olivia smiled as she folded the letter. She wrote back, "Jessica, I'm glad you learned from that day. But remember, you should treat everyone with dignity and respect, not because they might be a secret hero, but because they are a person." The story became a famous case study taught in business schools and military academies about the folly of judging a book by its cover. The Air Force even created a leadership seminar called the Spectre Protocol, reminding its personnel that true strength is often quiet and unassuming. Today, Olivia lives a quiet life in Montana, teaching young people how to fly at a small local airfield. Her students have no idea about her storied past, unless they ask. To them, she's just Liv, a patient instructor who loves the sky. But every now and then, when a student is having a crisis of confidence, Olivia shares a piece of her philosophy. "Remember, how you treat people when you think no one is watching is who you are," she'll say. Flying isn't about being a hotshot. It's about being steady when everything goes wrong and remembering that you hold other people's lives in your hands. But most of all, remember that heroes rarely look the part. They might be the person sitting quietly in seat 12F, wearing an old hoodie and carrying a beaten-up bag. They might be the person you're about to dismiss. So be kind. You never know who you're sitting next to. They just might be a hero in disguise.